Okay.
I just unmuted her.
I just Terry muted everybody. Are we ready to go, Julie?
I'm waiting for the high sign. You are ready. I got a
We're
check.
ready.
Good. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the April 15th meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. We are, as you can see, doing a virtual meeting via the Zoom app. And so we're all going to work hard to make sure that this works and we get our business done. But I want you to know that because of the shelter in place or shelter at home orders and the COVID-19 pandemic, we will be using Zoom for the foreseeable future as our meeting platform. And so to all of the commissioners during the meeting, please mute your mic. If you have not already done so, please mute them now. We will take the roll call in just a moment. But for the instructions, I just want to let everyone know that I will request any committee questions and comments on every agenda item. If you would like to speak, raise your hand. You've all been doing that for the last few weeks, so you're familiar with that. The clerk of the board or I, depending on who sees you first, will call upon you. I probably will call upon you first and then ask Terry Ann if I've missed anyone. And then when it's time to speak, go ahead and unmute your mic. After you speak, please mute your mic again and lower your hand. I will also request any public comments. And if there are members of the public attending, and there are, I see them in the attendee list already, and they wish to speak during an agenda item, again, please raise your hand, or if you are just on the telephone with an audio reception of this meeting, press *9, and that will indicate to us that you have raised your hand. And either Terry Ann, the clerk of the board, or I will call on you to speak and to unmute your mic. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to speak. After that 3 minutes, you will automatically be re-muted. And your hand will be lowered by staff. If an action is required on any of the agenda items, I will call for the vote, and Terry Ann will call the roll. And then when she calls on you, please unmute your mic, vote, and then remute your mic. So that's sort of the instructions for the day. If anyone has any questions, please indicate by raising your hand and letting us know. I don't see anyone raising their hands. So we're good to go. All right, the next item on the agenda is public comment. And we have, let's see if we have anyone in the attendee list that wants to speak under any item not listed on today's agenda. I don't see anyone raising their hands there. Do you, Terry Ann?
No.
I do not. All right, I will close the public comment section then, and we will go to the approval of the minutes from the meeting of March 18th. And I will ask my fellow commissioners if there are any questions or comments or changes that anyone wants to make, or whether we have a motion.
Don't we need to do roll call first?
Oh, yes, you're right. We didn't do the roll call. Thank you. Terry Ann, you want to call the roll and confirm we have a quorum? I can see we have a quorum, but I think we better call the quorum first for the record.
Can you hear me?
Terry Ann, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear her?
Terry Ann,
Can you hear
she's not
me?
hearing us.
Can you hear me?
Tim, can you hear us?
Can you hear me? It's
I
Randy.
don't have audio indicated for any of them.
Somebody needs to unmute Terry Ann.
Huh?
Unmute Terry Ann.
He's unmuted, it just isn't working.
Hello?
Yeah, she's on
Get
the
your headset in.
phone.
Can you hear me?
Let me text her.
No, put your headset
Let
in
me
there.
text her. Sorry, people in the audience, we're getting there.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, they're working on it. They heard us, but they're not there. Well, I tell you what, I can call the roll. How about if I do that?
Yeah, it'll record it.
I
Hello?
will call the
Hello?
roll for the record. Teresa Geringer, Vice Chair. Here. Thank you. Newell Arnrich.
Here.
Tom Butt.
Here.
Federal Glover.
Here.
Luella Haskew. Here. Dave Hudson. I see him, but I'm not hearing him. Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Chris Kelly.
Here.
Karen Mitchoff.
Here.
Romick.
Here.
Bob Taylor, did we get you back?
Here. Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
I don't see him.
I think I convinced him it's tomorrow.
Well, maybe you better text him and tell him to get back on the meeting.
No, here.
Okay, we definitely have a quorum. We have all of us here with the exception at the moment of Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
And I don't know if we have all of our ex officios here or not. Amy, are you still on the call?
I'm here.
Okay, and Deborah Allen, are you on the call? I haven't seen her. And Monica Wilson?
Yeah, I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I think we are good to go. So I will ask one more time and see. Bob Taylor is at the office. Of course he is.
Yes.
All right. Very good. So I will ask again, since we're going back, I will ask again and see if there's anyone in the audience that wants to comment on any item not on today's agenda. We've had a few people join us since we first started. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment on any item not on the agenda, either raise your hand or hit *9 if you were just on the phone. Seeing no one raise their hand, we will close the public comment period and we will go to the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Romick,
Second.
second from Hudson. Terry Ann, would you please call a roll call vote? Or do you want me to do that?
Can you hear me?
I think we're still working on it. Okay, they're still stuck, so I'm going to call the roll again. Terry Ann, I know, is able to follow us. So we will, yeah. Randy says still working. Okay, I will continue to call the roll then. Teresa Geringer.
Yes.
Newell Arnrich.
Yes.
Do computer audio for you.
Tom Butt.
Yes.
Federal Glover.
Yes.
Luella Haskew.
Abstain.
I'm sorry,
Abstain.
you said abstain?
I wasn't there, so I can't approve them.
Yes, you actually can.
Oh, well then, yes.
Okay, very good. Dave Hudson?
Yes.
Chris Kelly?
Yes.
Karen Mitchoff?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin Romick?
Yes.
And Mayor Bob
Yes.
is there in the office.
Yes.
So they are approved with, I'm assuming, Bob Taylor's.
Yes.
Bob Taylor just voted yes. I just got a text. Very scientific, right? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So that takes care of the approval of the minutes. And we will go then to the consent calendar. As you all know, neither the Administration and Projects Committee nor the Planning Committee this month due to all the changes. So all of their items have been forwarded to the full authority board meeting, and so the consent calendar is fairly long. Are there any items any board member wishes to pull? I'm seeing shaking heads. Cool.
Move approval.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Romick,
Second,
second by Hudson. Is that correct?
Newell.
Newell.
Maybe
All
not.
right. I couldn't see your nodding head. All right. Very good. So we have a motion by Romick, a second by Newell to approve the consent calendar. And we're going to go back to a roll call vote.
Give me your phone on that.
Again. And I'm guessing, since I haven't heard
Come over
any
here and copy
difference.
this number.
I hear staff talking.
Hello, hello.
Staff's going to take the roll.
Julie, go ahead until they're up and running.
I'm going to. Text me when you think you're ready, staff. Okay, Teresa Geringer,
Yes.
Newell Arnrich,
Yes.
Tom Butt,
Yes.
Edward Glover,
Yes.
Luella Haskew,
Yes.
Dave Hudson,
Yes.
Chris Kelly,
Yes.
Karen Mitchell,
Yes.
Kevin Romick,
Yes.
Bob Taylor. Yes, I got a yes from Bob in the office. Okay, and Julie Pierce is a yes. All right, that was approved unanimously. Thank you all very much. And we will go on to our major discussion items. And I'm hoping that staff has things fixed so that we can actually do this presentation. The first item is for A1, which is the adoption of the publicly available pay schedule. And staff can tell me by text if they think we're ready to make a presentation here. If not, we'll figure this out here in a second. Staff, are you ready to make a report? Carrie Ann?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. There's a little reverberation in the background, but we can hear you.
You just need to turn your phone
gonna-
off. You can't have both voices.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Get the mic a
Okay.
little bit closer, please.
Okay. So this is our annual pay schedule that we bring to the board on an annual basis for approval to meet the CalPERS requirements for a publicly available pay schedule. In December, the consumer price index change was 2.5%, which is below the authority board approved annual cap of 3.5%. Staff is requesting the fiscal year 2020-2021 pay schedule be amended by the 2.5%. This would be contingent upon the authority board's approval of the annual budget. If approved, the cost of living adjustment will be provided to all employees on July 1st. Staff requests adoption of Resolution 2005A to publicly adopt the pay schedule contingent upon the authority board's approval of the annual budget. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions from the authority board members? Anybody have any questions? Luella?
By the time I figure out all the buttons I'm supposed to push,
That's okay, I saw you.
I just have a procedural question because it strikes me as the forecast of what our sales tax revenues are going to be for the next, who knows, however, because of the COVID payments, et cetera. And this just because I'm nervous about committing to any kind of even planned increase without some kind of floor to stand on. A procedural question is, would this affect the calculation of the staff compensation compensation in the budget?
Could you hear that question, Terry Ann?
Yeah, I didn't hear the very end, the last
Is it in
sentence.
the budget?
Yeah,
Because
so
we haven't done the budget yet, so it's contingent on the
Right.
bids, but
I understand that it's contingent on the budget, but will it impact the budget? Is it just a built-in increase that will just automatically flow through? Or are we setting expectations for a raise, or what are we doing? I'm just really nervous about the dry up of sales tax revenue.
yeah, understood. It would increase the annual salaries by $121,826. This is just the piece. Typically, this would approve it. However, in light of the situation that you just mentioned, we did make this year's contingent upon the approval of the annual budget, which will come before the authority board probably in June. And if this piece of that, or if that was not approved, then this would not go through. And this piece of it would just be the CalPERS requirement to have an adopted publicly available pay schedule. However, it would not officially be approved unless you approve it with the budget.
Okay, the only other thing I'm nervous about, this is a comment, is that we are kind of setting a standard and an expectation and communicating to the public that we are looking to raise salaries in what might be a very sparse income year.
Yes, understood.
yeah, that's a good point, Luella. And I guess the follow-up question to that would be, we have the 1920 pay schedule on the website now, correct?
Correct.
And that's the one that's in force right now until we adopt the new budget, correct?
That's correct, yeah. And then,
So
so
we're
if this
in
wasn't
compliance.
adopted,
Yeah.
we are,
so we're
yeah.
in
So,
compliance until the new budget is due.
correct, yeah. So that one's through June 30th. If it wasn't approved, then we would just make that, it would be the same pay schedule for next year.
Would there be any harm in leaving the current pay schedule up there until the budget is approved?
We would leave it up regardless if this is approved tonight or not, because it still wouldn't be officially approved until the annual budget is approved in June. So this is all contingent upon the budget. This would just be the CalPERS piece where we would have adopted a publicly available pay schedule. If it's not adopted as part of the annual budget, then we would just move forward with the same public available pay schedule we have that's currently on the website. We would just update the dates to extend it through the next fiscal year with no 2.5% cost of living increase. If it is adopted tonight and then it's further adopted with the budget, which would ratify it, then that would be effect July 1st, and that would be the time when we would update the pay scale on the website.
I think what Luella is asking is about the optics of this right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everything that all of our cities are going through and the uncertainty of our financial situation. And until Brian has the opportunity to give us a better idea of what we're looking at for a budget next year and how all this is going to impact that, I think everybody's a little nervous about sending any messages about increasing expenses. Would that be a fair representation, Luella?
As
What
well
about
as,
the rest of you?
well, I
Anybody
only,
else?
Julie, may I continue?
I couldn't hear you, Luella.
May I continue?
Yes.
All right. The other thing is, from what I learned at another meeting, organizations, transit organizations are laying off people and their executives are taking pay cuts even now. I just feel real nervous about this.
Okay, any other comments, Newell?
Yeah, I mean, I think the appropriate time to talk about this is a perfunctory step that we have to do. It actually could be delayed, but, and put it as part of the budget discussion and do them at the same time. But it's our budget discussion where we make decisions. You know, this was a recommendation to move this forward under the information we had at the time. I'm still comfortable with doing this, but it's just a recommendation as a placeholder subject to looking at the entire budget. And I would move the item under that concern.
And I'd second it with a comment.
All right, Dave?
Yeah, I'm looking, Karen's probably nodding off right about now. I just went through this for about an hour this morning. Actually, it's not 2.5, it's 3.1. And we're going to cut back to something that will be tantamount to what the 2.5 is also. But this isn't a city. It's an organization that's done pretty well. I'm completely comfortable with this when we get to the budget also. So hopefully don't miss those budget meetings, though.
All right, do we have any other hands raised? I do not see any other hands raised. So I have a motion by Newell and a second by Dave. Newell, did you want to speak again?
Yeah, can we ask, you can see them lighting up every 2 seconds. Whoever's on area code 707 and their number 7, could they mute? Because there's so much background noise that's interrupting well and everything.
There is.
Hi, I'm sorry. I think that's me. I'm out in the hallway. Miss Terry Ann.
Okay, yep, you're talking right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
we either get to a quieter place or mute. Sorry.
Okay. Well, she's going to need to call the roll here in a second, or do you want me to do it, Terry Ann?
Is the background okay now? It's actually no one out here but me. I don't know where the noise is coming from, but would you like me to do it?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Arnrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yeah.
Commissioner Haskew,
We didn't
Commissioner
hear you.
Haskew.
We didn't hear you, Luella.
No.
Okay.
No. Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Romick,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
You have him with you.
Yeah. He's in the boardroom.
Yes.
So yes,
Yes.
Did you hear him?
that's a yes. Vice Chair Geringer,
Yes.
Chair Perry.
Yes.
The item passes with majority.
Thank you. And that was with 2 no votes who were Luella Haskew and Karen Mitchoff, if I got the count correct.
No, I voted yes.
Did you vote yes? Okay, that's not how it came across on the audio. And
Okay.
Luella,
Yes.
yes or no? You voted no, correct? Yes. All right. So with 1 no vote, and that was from Commissioner Haskew.
Do you hear us now?
Thank you all.
That's how I recorded it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Good to double check because the audio is a little sketchy at times.
Commissioner
Okay.
Pierce, can you hear
So
us?
that concludes that item.
No?
And then we have, I don't think we had any public comment on that. I hope not, because if we did, I missed it. I don't see any hands raised
Hello?
by the attendees, so I think we're good. Okay, so we'll go to the next item, which is item number 2, which is public status update for the Interstate 680 HOV lane completion and express lane conversion. And we have a staff report from Ivan.
Commissioner, before I get going, I want to make sure you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you.
Give me a minute to share the screen here, please. Can you see the screen?
We
Commissioner?
can't see the screen. It would be nice to put it into, there you go, you got it.
Good evening, Chair Pierce and board members. Ivan Ramirez, the Director of Construction for the Authority. And today, staff is going to present an informational item on the I-680 HOV lane completion and express lane conversion project. So this graphic on stage shows basically the project length is that blue line along 680 where it starts at the Benicia Martinez Bridge and ends on where it connects with the existing express lane that was completed by MTC a couple of years ago. And a little bit of history on the project. This project had an original engineer's estimate of $7.6 million. We advertised the project and the low bid came at $64.5 million. And that was a bid submitted by the lowest responsible bidder submitting a responsible bid, Bay City's Paving and Grading. This board awarded the contract on July 18, 2018, and originally had a duration of 700 days. With those 700 days, the expected completion of this project was late 2021 and early 22. But as I'm going to show in today's presentation, staff is working very hard with our partners and our contractor to complete this project a full year ahead of schedule. So it will be done at the end of this year. But before we get into the details of that accelerated work, I want to give you a couple of updates on where construction stands. This is an overview of the existing southbound on-ramp from South Main Street. And I'm going to show you here some of the progress that is currently being made. This is the bridge that's being currently widened. The contractor is spending a lot of resources currently right now in order to achieve their projected completion date at the end of this year. This is the retaining wall along South Main in the city of Walnut Creek. On the top of the slide, you can see that same bridge that I showed you in the previous slide. And this, this retaining wall and fill is being raised as quickly as possible because you're going to put traffic eventually there, and that's going to, again, help with the completion date. So over the last 2 weeks, the contractor has actually tripled the amount of people that he has been working on this retaining wall. And this is an overview of the road gear on-ramp as it was prior to construction starting. And here you can see that a lot of work has been done. This picture is about 2 months old, so much more progress has been made at this location. And again, you have a huge retaining wall, and it's going to accommodate 2 more lanes, additional storage capacity, because it's going to be a metering line at this location. So I want to talk a little bit about the ongoing construction costs that the authority takes when they're doing business in construction. Here we have maintenance costs. Primarily, somebody crashes into something, damages something, the authority is responsible for our contract or cooperative agreement with Caltrans to make the repairs. We also have a continuing maintenance of the stormwater pollution prevention program. We have to keep these measures in place, especially in the winter. They prevent sediment from running into our waterways from our project site, and it's required by the water board. We also have to keep and maintain paying the bills. So if we install a signal or we install temporary light or permanent light, we are responsible for those bills while it's in operation until we turn it over to the ultimate owner. It could be a city, it could be Caltrans. Then we also have COSI, the highway patrol. Every time we work at night, we ask the highway patrol to come over and help us protect our workers and the public, and that's an additional expense. So just by doing business on a continuing basis, the authority incur costs. And I think that's important, relevant to the acceleration, because the way the acceleration works is that we and the contractor have agreed that if they complete the work before the end of the year, they will be entitled to a $1 million payment. If they don't complete the work, then they will not be able to obtain any payment, even though, as I mentioned earlier, they're spending additional resources to trying to make this new deadline. But overall, even though you're paying the $1 million to the contractor, there's significant savings from other sources. For instance, the overhead and support costs. These are the people that do our inspection, they do our quality control, they coordinate a lot with our partners, sometimes the cities, they coordinate with the designer. You know, we expect them just by leaving the project a year ahead of schedule, that there's going to be a savings of around $1.6 million. And the previous slide, all those costs we contemplated between the change orders that we use to pay for those costs and the bid items that are part of the contract for those costs is going to save an additional $400,000. So overall, the project will absorb or will have reduced costs for $1 million by the implementation of this change order. So because CCTA is the implementing agency, we're constructing the civil works, and that means the retaining walls, the road, the new barriers, sound walls, and so on. But right behind us, and concurrent with us, is BEFA. They're in charge of installing the software and the hardware that goes into the running and maintaining of the express lanes. And they are going to have to also accelerate their contractor in order to begin their revenue collection by the end of the year. So once we approach MPC or BEFA with this idea, they sign up right behind us, and they decided that they wanted to open this express lane for revenue a year ahead of schedule. But they have a big task ahead of them because implementing, installing this hardware and the software takes a long time to coordinate and to connect to the existing express lane installing systems. Also, the fact that they have to have the correct algorithm so that the dynamic pricing works the way it's supposed to work. Also, the fact that they have to be able to have fast track collecting revenue in the way that they want. So they have a big order ahead of them. One of the things that we did accomplish in a meeting last week, similar to this one between BEFA, Caltrans, and CCTA, is that we decided that when we open the new lane, it's going to open as an express lane, but it's not going to be tolling. It's just going to be an express lane that people are going to be able to use. It was a concern because we didn't know, there were several options being contemplated, but this is the one that everybody agreed made the most sense. So that's the first check mark that we have in place there, but there's many more ahead, and CCTA supports BEFA in their actions, and BEFA supports CCTA, so we're working as a team to make sure that this express lane opens on time at the end of the year. So I want to talk a little bit about risks, and I actually mentioned a couple of them, but one of them is labor. We know it has been discussed with BEFA's contractor, Transport, that they have limited resources to get all the work done that needs to be done because they're working on several projects for MPC BEFA. So that's one concern. We've been working with them. BEFA has, we have, and they have made commitments that we think they're going to be able to live with so that they can come and do the work. But in addition to that, everybody is aware of the COVID-19 situation. So far, we haven't been impacted by in any way. The contractors have implemented some health and safety measures so that the workers can continue working in a safe manner, keeping the distance, not shaking hands, and all a series of things that they have implemented so that the workers remain safe. Like I mentioned earlier, the tolling equipment itself is a risk because this is very complex, and now we're compressing the amount of time that it needs to be done. So it's a possibility that might slip a little bit. And also a big risk is PG&E. The toll equipment cannot run without the power, and PG&E has been an unreliable service provider in this sense. There has been continuing communication between BEFA, CCTA, and PG&E to bring them to the table and commit to making these connections. And in some instances, they have been responsive, but until the connection is in place and we have the power, it's very difficult to know what to estimate if they're going to be delivering as they say they will. So we're all familiar with the win-win term. It's when there's two parties that come together, reach an agreement, and both parties win with this agreement. And staff believes that we have a situation that we call the win-win-win-win. And the reason is because they are contractor-based cities. They are able to complete a year earlier. They're going to get the incentive that has been provided to them. And in addition to that, they're going to be able to demobilize and they can go and move on to other projects. The public would believe it's a big winner, and there's two reasons for that. Number one, of course, that they're going to get the choke point that currently exists on North Main Street removed. So they're going to get this additional lane 1 full year ahead of schedule. In addition to that, the contract calls for a lot of new resurfacing, starting at Monument all the way in the southbound direction, all the way to Rockgate Road. And some of that pavement currently is in very bad condition, it's in dismal condition. And, we get a lot of complaints from the public about it. And the fact that we will eliminate another rainy season during those conditions, I think the public benefits greatly for that. CCPA, I think that we live to the motto of promises made, promises delivered. And we are able to turn over this project again in a cost-efficient manner to the public. MTC is another winner for two reasons. Number one is their contractor was supposed to mobilize twice and demobilize twice during the course of the project. With this new schedule that we have in place, they're only going to do it once. So that's a big saving for the contractor. Hopefully they'll be able to get something in return for that. In addition to that, MTC will be able to generate revenue on that expressway 1 full year ahead of schedule. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions.
Okay, questions from the staff. For us, Newell, you have your hand raised.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second. Ivan, this is really interesting. I know you've been working on this a long time. It's a great presentation. I think it was, 2-3 weeks ago, you also got permission for them to work during the day. They've done an amazing amount of work in the past 2.5 weeks because there's such low volume traffic. But the bottom line on this will save the agency $600,000 according to your report. It's $1 million incentive, but we're saving 1.6, so the net is a $600,000 savings. Is that correct? I didn't mute it.
Yes, Commissioner. So we're actually expecting it to be a little higher, about $1 million. That's our current estimate.
Good. I move the item. This is great. This is the type of agency we are. We're always looking forward. Contractor is performing well. And believe it or not, the COVID-19 is actually a win for them right now because of the low traffic volumes.
Right. Okay, I have.
I'll second.
And I can't see the screen, Terry Ann. Can you stop sharing your screen, Ivan? I couldn't see who the second was.
Karen.
Karen, thank you. That helps a lot. Okay, we have a motion by Arnrich, a second by Mitchoff. I will go and ask if there is any public comment. I did not see any hands raised. When I looked at the full attendee list, there were no hands raised there. So there is no public comment, and I will go to Terry Ann for a roll call vote, please. Oh, no, there's no vote needed.
Yeah,
That's just,
it's an information.
that's just an update. Okay. Well, we all approve, right? Okay. Very good. So we are on to the next item, which is under the Planning Committee, and this is a presentation on the Martinez and Monument Corridor Community-Based Transportation Plan, and we have a report by Matt Kelly, and he is sharing his screen. Good for you.
Oh, good. You can see it then.
We can.
Great, and you can hear me. Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, good evening, Chair Pierce and Commissioners. It's great to be sitting in my dining room right now, sharing this with you. So under OBAG 2, MTC allocated funding for a new cycle of community-based transportation plans that are intended to address mobility and accessibility issues for communities of concern in the Bay Area. CCTA, as the CMA for Contra Costa, received $215,000 to update 4 of its community-based transportation plans and was responsible for overseeing the preparation of these plans. The 4 communities of concern in the county that have the CBTPs are downtown Martinez, the Monument Corridor in Concord, Richmond and San Pablo, and Pittsburgh, Bay Point, and Antioch. In late 2018, we contracted with 2 consultants to prepare these plans, and the 2 being presented tonight were prepared by Nelson Nygaard, and they are, as Chair Pierce mentioned, the Martinez and Monument Corridor CBTPs. So let's see if I can move this on here. Okay, there's just an outline of what we'll be going through. So what is a community-based transportation plan? Well, first, as I mentioned, they take place in communities of concern. MTC defines those communities of concern, but they are basically intended to represent a diverse cross-section of populations and communities that could be considered disadvantaged and vulnerable in terms of both current conditions and potential impacts. And MTC uses 8 demographic variables to determine these locations. It includes income, minorities, proficiency of English language, elderly, 0 vehicle households, single parent families, disabled, and rent burdened households. So these plans in those communities are intended to bring those local residents, community-based organizations, and transportation agencies like ourselves and the transit agencies together to identify gaps and challenges in the transportation system and come up with strategies and recommendations to overcome those and improve the communities, the local mobility. So these were conducted from late 2018 to February of this year. They were built on previous CBTPs that were done in the mid-2000s. We established staff working groups made up of local staff and transit agency and stakeholder group staff, and then steering committees that had city council members of the local jurisdictions, transit agency managers, and community-based organization managers to drive the process. We looked at changes since the last CBTPs that included transit driver shortages, the taxi industry changing, new technologies, including TNC. And we looked at innovative strategies that we included in our final recommendations. We wanted the strategies to reflect what's happening today. So we'll start with Concord and the Monument Corridor. Here's just a quick map of the area. It's on the north side of the Monument Corridor, on the Concord side of things. First, we looked at the existing transportation options in the corridor that include regional services, such as Amtrak. They're not necessarily in the corridor, but they are a big destination for people in the corridor. But mainly they rely on county connection routes. The Monument Shuttle, which I should mention was a product of the previous CBTP, was identified there and funded through the Lifeline Transportation Program. The Lifeline Transportation Program is a dedicated funding source for projects identified in the CBTP, so that's important to note. We looked at bicycle and pedestrian facilities, social service transportation that could include paratransit or medical transport or options to get people to medical appointments, and then other modes like taxis, Ubers and Lyfts, and then the volunteer programs we have in the area. We looked at prior studies. So we weren't replicating what was in prior studies, but instead building upon them. So we looked at the Concord's general plan, their specific plans, their bike ped plans, transit plans, our own bike and ped plan, and then the equity analysis from Plan Bay Area. We went through a significant public outreach program in the corridor, working through both the project working group and the steering committee. We conducted stakeholder interviews to find out what their concerns were about transportation in the corridor. We did surveys. We tried to go web, but in this, with this population, we had to go and, press the flesh with the public. Good thing it was done pre-COVID-19 because we had to go to where the people were, whether it be farmers markets or community meetings, and we did paper interviews at those locations. We did a lot of translation from Spanish. We collected 83 surveys. And then we conducted an open house in August, hosted by Monument Impact, who were a major participant in the CBTP. And we had about 40 community members show up, which, is not a huge number, but for an in-person meeting is a fair number. So we thought that was a meeting. So the gaps that were identified by the stakeholders, and we didn't have staff identify issues. We left it to the people in the corridor, both the stakeholders and the residents, to identify the gaps. So in terms of infrastructure, the multimodal network is weak. It's strong in terms of arterial connections for vehicles, but not for other modes. Pedestrian infrastructure along Monument, there's gaps in the sidewalk system for walkability conditions that, namely lighting and fencing issues along the sidewalk. There's definitely incomplete bike infrastructure, and there are no bike routes on Monument itself. It's actually dangerous to ride on there, though we see people every day riding along there. And in terms of safety, dangerous vehicle driver behaviors and unsafe bicycling behaviors. Transit frequency is too little to allow for flexibility for users. And the city bus schedules and routes don't correspond to extracurricular activities that are going on in the corridor that the youth need to get around. In terms of information, there's just not enough multilingual information for the users. We do know there is, County Connection was involved. They do everything in several languages, but this is what we heard from the community. They aren't familiar with Clipper cards in general and the benefits they get from those. And then our elderly citizens and veterans really have a hard time finding those public transit schedules and so forth. And at CCTA, if you ask any of the people who answer the phone, they'll tell you that we get dozens of calls a day looking for transit information as opposed to the transit providers themselves. So there's just a lot of, there's a lack of information out there. The cost of travel is perceived as too high for groups in the corridor, and Ubers and Lyfts just are out of their price range. So it wasn't perceived as an option for them. Paratransit is perceived as kind of overwhelming, and there's too much paperwork. They don't know what paratransit is for, so they're seeking more information there. And paratransit is seen as expensive, even though, it's designed not to be so. And then there's, red tape in terms of booking in advance. So strategies that were identified, and we came up with a scoring rubric to, provide priority for these recommendations. So basically, safe routes to schools. We think we've identified this as a great opportunity for all communities, but especially in this community, and that includes, transit passes for youth, bike school buses where kids travel together in a group, and then definitely those gaps in the sidewalks are a huge impediment and need to be improved. So more information at the transit stops, general infrastructure improvements, and that's more about streetscape and intersection geometry and making sure they're safe for users. Back to those subsidized transit passes, and then increasing transit frequency, and especially on the weekends is what we heard, is where that transit service is needed, but also for the after school times. I'm not going to go into all of these. These are some of the lower ranking ones, but these are all included in the report that is packet today. So I'm going to move on to Martinez. The location is right around the downtown area, around the Amtrak station. There aren't a ton of residents down there, but there is a small residential population right around downtown. So first we looked at what was down there, and that's Amtrak. There is some WestCat service from West County. Tri-Delta Transit comes in from East County, but primarily it's County Connection. There's bike and pedestrian facilities down there. We took account of those. Again, the social service transportation, paratransit, et cetera. And then the other modes, the TNCs and the taxis. Again, we looked at existing plans, the general plans, the bike and ped plan, any specific plans in the area. And then we did a similar public outreach. Reaching people in this corridor was even more difficult because there isn't kind of a central community-based organization that represents these people like Monument Impact does in the Monument Corridor. So we had far fewer interviews, but we did have more outreach that was conducted via web, and then meeting with people at farmers markets and community meetings. And then we did host an open house at the Martinez Community Center. It wasn't exceptionally well attended, I will note. So the gaps that were identified in downtown Martinez, once again, sidewalk condition, the lack of bicycle infrastructure connecting directly to downtown, and the fact that it is perceived as unsafe in the downtown because of one-way streets and lack of bike lanes, and the general connectivity to other trails outside the area. Safety was an issue. Basically, bike and peds are injured more than any other mode. There's limited bus service or perceived limited frequency in the corridor. And then once again, there's not enough multi-language information. Users have a hard time finding the information they need, whether it be real-time or schedule information. So lots of things in common across the two cities. And the fact that senior populations, there is real-time information from County Connection, but our senior population is having trouble accessing that. Cost was also an issue, both for transit and for TNCs, and they are looking for more subsidies on travel programs.
Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Matt,
Yeah.
this is Karen Mitchell. Can you not use the pointer, and it's flipping all over on everything, and I think it takes away from your presentation. If you can just put it down there, that would be really helpful.
Gotcha. I wasn't aware you could see my pointer, so thanks for pointing that out. I'll keep it down here.
Thank you.
To advance the slides. So the strategies that were identified in Martinez, very similar to Concord. Infrastructure improvements. We need to fix the intersections so they're safer for pedestrians and bikes, whether that means, closing the, bulb outs, making the intersections shorter, filling in the sidewalk gaps. People with visual impairments, they need notifications of when the signals are changing. Safe routes to schools rose to the top. so improvements around schools, driver assistance programs for people re-entering driving, whether it be re-entering from the correctional facilities or people who haven't driven in a while for whatever reason, medically related, so forth. And then transit and taxi programs needed improvements. So once again, I won't go into the lower ranked scores, but I would suggest looking at these plans in your pack. So our recommendation tonight is to approve the final community-based transportation plans with any input you guys have tonight, and direct staff to work with our local jurisdictions to identify funds with which they can implement the recommendations from the CBTPs. And I will note that the county in particular has been very successful obtaining grant funding for projects that are named in their CBTPs due to the fact that these projects are in the CBTPs, and those a lot of the time add points to your scoring in grant applications. And then along with the Lifeline Transportation Program, there, like I mentioned, that is a dedicated funding program for these CBTPs, and staff at CCTA is willing to help out the local jurisdictions in aligning their grant applications with the CBTPs. So that's all I have, and I can take any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board members? I don't see any hands raised. Yes, I do. Newell.
Actually, just a comment. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, first of all, this is a fabulous study. I don't think I've seen us do anything like this in many, many years. I think it's really exciting, and I know it's challenging to have gotten it all in PDF form and read through what was our packet, 480 something pages. But I think this was a deep dive in all areas, both very challenging areas as described to get participation. But I think it's pretty impressive what you got. And I think this is great, and it should move forward.
Okay.
Julie, since you can't see me raising my hand, am I still on?
Yes. Who
Okay.
is that?
This is Kevin.
Okay, Matt, would you take down your screen, please? Thank you. Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, Tri-Delta has a program where we subsidize the Uber and Lyft rides. Have we looked at, has there been any consideration of looking at that program for, because there seems to be a lot of concern that those rides are too expensive for the people in these areas, and if there's ways we could guarantee them a ride for a certain cost, regardless of where they're going and how far they're going. Maybe a benefit, maybe something we can look into.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for that. That is a recommendation that I think you'll find in all 4 CBTPs. And you'll also be seeing that in a couple months in the Pittsburgh Bay Point Antioch CBTP. We heard those same concerns, but also we're aware of the Tri-Delta program.
Terrific. Thanks. Karen?
Thank you. I'd like to move the item, and I'm sure Supervisor Glover would like to second it since they are both in our respective districts.
Supervisor Glover?
Second, I was muted.
Okay.
And we're only seeing the top of your head, Federal. Got it. There you go.
I have a motion by Mitchoff and a second by Glover, but I'm first going to go and just double check. I did not see any hands raised among the attendees, but I'm looking yet again. I don't see anyone even on the phone chiming in. We do have 5 phone numbers dialed in, or we've now got 4, but I don't see any hands raised in the public. And if I babble long enough, it gives them a chance to unmute, so that's not there. Okay, So I see no other comments from board members. So we do have a motion by Mitchoff, a second by Glover. And I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please. Harry?
What the heck is he?
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Okay, Commissioner Arner,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover,
Yeah.
Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Romick,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor, and I got a response. It's a yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair Geringer,
Yes.
Chair Pierce,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Thank
Mic
you all
check,
for
mic
that.
check. Does anybody, do you hear Mike? It's Randy.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. We fixed it.
Good.
Hallelujah.
Okay. It took a while. All right. The next item on the agenda is going to be one that John is going to present for us, and that is the circulation of the draft fiscal year congestion management agency budget. So John, you're up. We need to unmute John. Can I do that? I can.
We'll work on it.
I just unmuted John. And he's sharing his screen. We see it coming up, John,
Okay.
and we can hear you.
Okay, let me get going here. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry about that. Let me get going here. I didn't get, so can you see the presentation?
Yes.
I think Julie's trying to ask you to put it in full screen mode.
Yeah, I'm,
Lower right, right next to where your volume control, or where your size view is, there's a theater screen.
okay, hang on a second. I'm sorry about this.
Or just hit in the upper left from current slide and it'll automatically do it.
How come I'm not seeing this?
Because it's very small. It looks
Okay.
like a screen on a stand.
Yeah.
I'm completely sorry about this. Hang on a second.
That's okay.
We'll do what Newell suggested. Go up in the under home
Okay.
from current slide.
Just where it says from current slide, click on that upper left.
Yeah.
A large box area. We can all see it big.
You can see it big? Okay.
Well, I mean, we can see where you need to click.
I don't see it. That's the problem. Hang on a second.
Okay, just go ahead with the show.
Okay,
You can do this and just click on the next slide where you have it over there on the left side of your screen. And
Okay. So can you see the slide that I moved forward right now?
No,
It's not working on an iPad, that's for sure.
or on a laptop.
No, I tested this out before it didn't work.
John, why don't you
Yeah,
just
no,
go through it verbally, because you've got the draft 2021 slide up. Talk about, this is a year-to-year issue, and we're bringing this to you for approval for the CMA budget, and go through that, just do that piece.
Okay, I'm sorry about this. Okay, I'm just going to do a verbal update. So good evening, Chair Pierce and Commissioners. I'm John Huang, Director of Planning at CCPA, and thank you for this opportunity to present to you the draft fiscal year 2021 Congestion Management Agency budget. As Chair Pierce mentioned earlier, typically staff would present this item at the Planning Committee meeting first, and then distribute the draft budget to the Planning Managers Association for review and approval. But since we didn't have a Planning Committee meeting this month, staff is bringing this draft report budget directed to the board and asking for your approval, send it to the PMA chair for circulation and approval by each member. Once the PMA approves, we'll bring it back and fold it into the final budget for the authority, which will be provided to you at a future meeting. Tonight, we give you a brief overview of the planning function for the authority's role as a CMA in our proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. As a CMA, the authority performs three major functions. We're responsible for implementing major transportation planning and growth management program, which includes developing the transportation forecasting model to support planning efforts of the regional transportation planning committees, and also support ongoing planning processes with the cities and the counties through the funding and development of a comprehensive countywide transportation plan. The authority is designated as a CMA for Contra Costa County. As the Congestion Management Agency, we're responsible for developing the countywide transportation plan, congestion management plan, and maintaining a transportation forecasting model, as well as the plan that you just received an update from Matt Kelly, the CPTPs. And we're also coordinating with the MTC Metropolitan Transportation Commission to develop the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan. As far as activities planned for fiscal year 2021, we're mostly continuing ongoing projects as well as starting kind of integrated transit study. And the project is listed on page 514 and 515 of the board packet, so I'm not going to go into it as Appendix D. The expenditures for these projects, the decreases and increases related to the status of the project and the activities that's happening for the year. For the draft budget, the CMA budget covers the planning functions for activities for the Growth Management Program, which is GMP. For that budget, we're looking at setting a $1.6 million budget funded by the GMP. And for the CMP budget, which is funded by MTC using Surface Transportation Program, STP program money, and also this year we added PPM, which is a state planning, programming, and monitoring funds. And the CMA budget also includes local contribution from your cities and 111 gas tax funding and sales tax. The last category is the SCS, which is the Sustainable Community Strategies implementation. That's funded also by MTC. For this, I mentioned the GMP, the Growth Management Program, the budget is at 1.6 million. The CMP budget is at 1.7 million, and the Sustainable Community Strategies is estimated at 143,000 for a total CMA budget of 3.485 million. I do want to mention in the CMP budget, the local contribution this year is of 201,000 roughly, and it's significantly less than last year's of over 400,000. And that is due to just the nature of the projects that we have lined up, and then additional funding from TransPac for their project, and as well as the MTC funding. With that, I request that the board approve the staff to send the draft CMA fiscal year 2021 budget to the PMA's chair for circulation and approval from each member. once approved, the final CMA budget will be included in the complete budget. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from board members? I don't see any hands raised. I'm going to then go to the public and see if there's anybody there. I don't see any hands raised there. We're losing some of our phone callers. So I don't see anyone with any hands raised, so no questions, any comments?
Move approval.
Okay, motion by Romick,
Second.
second by Arnrich. And may we have a roll call vote, please?
Hi, Commissioner Arnridge, you have your hand raised. Did you have a comment?
No, I was to speak, but yes is the answer. I vote yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Glover, Commissioner Glover,
Gotta unmute Federal.
Yes.
There you
thank you. Commissioner Haskew,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Romick,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
Vice Chair Geringer,
Yes.
Chair Pierce.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And it's good to hear from you, Bob. That's the first time we've heard your voice since you got kicked out.
Well, they finally let me back in.
They let you back in. That's good. Well, thank you very much. So we have no correspondence letters, and the committee reports are in the packet, what committee reports there are. And I don't see any communications there. So we are on to board member and staff comments. I have no report other than thank you all very much for your patience. We will get better at this. Based on the governor's announcement yesterday, I suspect we'll be doing this all through the summer. So we're going to be very well practiced by the time we get done with this. So with that, I'm going to go to commissioner comments and ex officio reports. Any commissioner comments? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, no hands raised there, so we will go to Randy.
Thank you, commissioners. I'm on the mic here. I'll show you what we're doing here. We're continuing to work. It seems like we have more work. We have more meetings for sure. We Zoom a lot. We have staff meetings, 3 staff meetings a week. The problem that we have is trying to make sure that we're all still connected as a team. I think one of our strengths is how well we work together. And so as we work apart, it's hard to make sure that we're still one team. And so we make a concerted effort to keep everybody engaged. I'm trying to send out as much information as I possibly can to all of you to keep you connected with what we're doing here at CCTA. We are a staff of 18 right now, still managing a multi-billion-dollar suite of projects and programs. Thank you for taking a vote and taking a look at what we have ongoing on 680. On 684, give you an update. The contractor has moved their paver from concrete paver from Southern California. They mobilized it to our project. They're going to pave State Route 4 and then do the traffic switch to reduce some of that constriction in there and make sure they get into that bridge footprint and replace that bridge during the work window that they have currently. We have asked the feds and the state for some waivers on environmental rules based on COVID. If the virus affects the workforce, then we're going to have a real problem. And so we don't want to have that issue on our project. So we've alerted our contractors, follow the safe practices, stay 6 feet apart. If you're not feeling well, stay at home, and those kinds of things. And we've also posted here at CCTA, we have some employees coming in sporadically to pull things off the copier, to make sure the check run is done. So we're still sporadically coming in the office. But I think the last thing I'll say is our progress on paperless program has really helped our organization prepare ourselves for remote work. And so a lot of our software packages and our hardware changes have been designed for remote work. And so, well, tonight, we should have unmuted Terry Ann's computer. We didn't do that. Everything would have worked great. So thank you for your patience and be safe. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions of Randy?
No, just thanks to everybody for the great job to get us organized and keep things moving. Nice job.
Okay, be safe. Thank you.
Thank you all. This was a good meeting, and we'll get better at it as we go forward. But thank you all, and staff, good job. You're really doing a great job. So thank you to all of you. Anybody else want to say anything? I can barely see the top of Randy's hand when he's doing something there. Is he giving us a thumbs up? High sign. Yeah, wonderful. All right. Thank you all. We are adjourned. Bye.
Goodbye.